which we are going to discuss on matters pertaining to writing measurable learning outcomes. Before we start, I think it is nice for those of you who are able to, you may want to switch on your cameras. It's always nice to see my fellow colleagues over here and friends. Okay. Today's session is going to take roughly an hour, maybe an hour and a half, an hour 45. And what we will do is very much will be to discuss about this thing called learning outcomes. Okay, and not only what learning outcomes are, but how are we able to write and also define what measurable learning outcomes are itself. Now, the key aspect of what a learning outcome is basically what is expected from your goal or what is expected from your actions itself. So when we talk about outcomes, outcomes are basically the end product. Okay, so these are outcomes. Let's just dissect this whole aspect about learning outcomes itself. Outcomes are very much the final product that you want to achieve. Okay, so in the simplest sense, when we talk about baking, the outcome is the cake, okay, or the biscuit or the bread. That is something that is the outcome. So what happens is we have a preconception on what we want the cake to be, correct? And this comes from our observation, the pictures that we see and the recipes that we read. Okay, so sometimes when you read a recipe, you see a picture. So that becomes the outcome that you want to achieve. So in the simplest sense, in our daily lives, we have numerous outcomes. Okay, like in the morning when you wake up, there is an outcome. The outcome is for the short term, you want to ensure that you beat the jam and you reach office before 8 a.m., for example. So you take action to ensure that you can reach office by 8 a.m. All right. So what kind of actions do you take? You use Waze. You ensure that you prepare on time. Maybe even your meals that you want to bring to office for your lunch was prepared the night before. Why do you do this? Because of that outcome. You want to reach office by 8 a.m. And you know by historical experiences that if you don't prepare your meals beforehand and you prepare the day itself, you may not reach office by 8 a.m. Okay, because traffic can be very bad. So, ladies and gentlemen, basically when we talk about outcomes, those are the things, the optimum result that you want to achieve. So in our daily lives, we go through numerous different kinds of outcomes that we want, optimum outcomes. Many a times we don't achieve our outcomes. Certain days, you maybe, for example, you're baking a cake. The outcome is the picture that you see. Then during the process itself, you follow, but at the end of the day, the cake did not reach that same level that was shown in the picture. So what do? You analyze. Why did I not reach my outcome? Why? What were the reasons? Then you analyze the recipe versus what you actually did. The recipe calls for 4 eggs. You did that. However, the recipe, in the definition of the recipe itself, the egg was 70 grams per egg, which is the standard weight in eggs over in Europe. Whereas in Malaysia, our eggs here vary in size. We have the A, B, C, and I believe there's a D. And a D egg may only weigh 50 grams. So when you followed the recipe, you followed 4 eggs of 50 grams. And that comes down to 80 grams less than what was actually required in the recipe. This is called analyzing you on why you did not achieve your outcome. So you analyze. It could be that. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is also the same for us when we look into measurable learning outcomes for our students and for the way that we assess our students. All right. So when we assess our students, we actually set the final goal that the student will need to achieve. And this very clearly is stated in your course learning outcomes. And what do? We come out with mechanisms to ensure that they achieve these outcomes. And the two key mechanisms that we have is called, number one, the assessment. All right, we have an assessment to evaluate the students. And number two is called the teaching and learning delivery methods. So we have how we teach, then we assess the student to ensure that the outcomes are then achieved. Are all our students achieving the outcomes that we want? No. If you have, then you are blessed. But many a times, even you try your best, it may not. So you may adjust the method that you do to ensure that the students achieve their outcomes. It could be by analyzing and understanding the students' ability, you add in certain mechanisms to ensure that they understand certain key elements to achieve that outcome itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, in today's session, this is what we are going to do. We are going to look into what are these outcomes, which are very important, learning outcomes, and how do we ensure it is measurable, and how do we not only ensure it is measurable, but how do we are able to write or define these basic outcomes itself. During the course of this workshop, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Any questions so far, guys? None of you have switched on your camera. Oh, please, guys, if you can. Okay? Can, so following, guys? Following, so far? All right, so these are outcomes. Every day we actually go through. Okay, so let's look at it this way. What is the purpose of this session? So the importance of measurable learning outcomes. Why is it important? One, clarity. They provide clear expectations for students, helping them to understand what is expected of them. Ladies and gentlemen, your syllabus or your course syllabus as you have is a very, very important document. Because when students they read your CLO, it already creates a path for them. This is what I must achieve in this particular course. So it creates clarity. And clarity is very important during the learning stage of a student. It is like we need to know where we are heading to for us to head. All right. It's very difficult for me to tell all of you, friends, let's go. The first thing you will ask, go where? Because if there is no destination, then everywhere is success. You see, that's where the problem is. If there is no clarity, whatever students do is deemed proper for them. So clarity is very important when you have good learning outcomes. Okay. Two, guidance. They guide instructors, which are us, me and you, in designing course content, teaching strategies, and assessment. If you know your outcome, this is what I want my students to learn, then it will guide my instruction. Okay, I am teaching marketing. The outcome for this that I want me as an instructor, I want my students to understand the fundamentals of marketing in a hospitality environment. For example, so it guides me. I will make sure that I put in things to meet that. Will I put in things such as like how to bake a cake? Yes, cake is also maybe part of hospitality, but it is nothing to do with marketing. So maybe not. Okay, so it guides us when there are clear outcomes. And this is also very true, ladies and gentlemen, for many of you who teach numerous levels of the same discipline. Some of you teach diploma marketing, degree marketing, master's marketing. Diploma is tahap 4, level 4 under the MQF. Degree is level 6, master's level 7. You may be teaching marketing, but because the levels are different, the outcomes will be different. And because the outcomes are different, the way that you conduct your lessons and the way that you do assessment will also be different. Correct? You understand that? So it guides you. It guides you as the facilitator, and it dictates the way that you design your content. And number 3, accountability. They ensure that both teaching and learning, the whole process, are focused on achieving specific goals. So you won't waste time during the process of delivering your courses and you go off. Learning outcomes actually ensure that we are focused and we are achieving our particular goal itself. Today, my learning outcome is very simple. My learning outcome is basically on ensuring that you are able to understand what measurable learning outcomes are. All right. So if at the end of the day, what you all gain is on telephone etiquette, then I have not achieved my goal, because what I have done was totally wrong. My goal is for you all to ensure that you all understand measurable learning outcome. But after 2 hours, you all know about telephone etiquette. So it's my fault. Okay. So why? Because I did not set clearly the learning outcome of the course. However, today I have said very clearly, today in the next 20 slides, yes, only 20, not much one. I know after convo, everybody tired already. So 20 slides cukup ah. Okay. This is what you guys will need to understand. This is called stating measurable learning outcomes. Okay. Any questions so far? Boleh? Boleh. Okay. It's Wednesday. Boleh lah. Okay. Now, why do I put this? If you look at now, I think you have seen this document before, kan? This is our vision, mission, core values of our institution. Now, if you look at our mission, vision, core values, all of this, there are also key outcomes that we want to achieve, especially our vision, kan? Our vision has an outcome. What? To be a leading global education provider delivering transformative students experiences in Malaysia and the region. That is the outcome. Apa yang kita nak capai? We want to capai this. That is our vision. Okay, so how do we achieve that? It needs to be measurable. So basically, it breaks down our action so that we are able to achieve that. Okay, so when you talk about writing measurable learning outcomes, we always think, oh, this is cikgu bagi student. No, it is also management giving head of schools giving lecturers, lecturers giving students, of course. So like for us, we have been given measurable learning outcomes or measurable goals, learning outcomes or goals. And for us, it's very simple. Student numbers, bottom line. Betul lah? So how do you achieve bottom line? That one lah. So the general way that top management structure, and it dictates to us for us to ensure that we are able to achieve those numbers. Number one. Number two, we want to ensure that our students are recognized. For us to be the leading global education provider, our students need to be good students. Not only they graduate, but they graduate with a high level, a good degree, a good classification. And when they go out, they are able to find job. So how is this measurable? All right, they said to us. So we have to ensure. So basically for us, we ensure it by ensuring that our students, good degree, able to find job. So what is the percentage of employment? It's measurable. Okay, I cannot say my students are good students. We are a global leading education provider because our students in UOW Malaysia are good. What is the definition of good? How is it measurable? There must be a context of measurable in this. It could be classification of first class. 15% of our students achieve second class upper and above. That's measurable. 95% of our students who graduate from us either find a job in a period of 6 months or they continue their study. Measurable. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is already measurable outcomes. So it is the same. So what I'm trying to say here is this. We write measurable learning outcomes for our students. Learning outcomes are the goals. So basically, we are also dictated by outcomes based on our vision and mission. Okay? Next. This one you all know? Definitely lah. This is called graduate attributes. What are the graduate attributes? Over here, we have UOW has 6 graduate attributes. And what are graduate attributes? Graduate attributes are outcomes that the student need to achieve. All right, it is the final outcome. When they graduate from us, they need to achieve that. Okay, so they need to have intellectual competency, professional acumen, blah, 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 and so on. There are 6 of this that all of us already know. So basically for us, we know the outcome, this. When I'm teaching marketing, for example, or I used to teach marketing, I know my students need to achieve this. So for intellectual competency, it is basically the knowledge that I give the student. However, I understand that students also need to know about this thing called entrepreneurial spirit and global mindset. So what do I do? In my lesson of marketing, I incorporate not only scenarios, situations, and examples of in Malaysia, but in a more global environment. We look at what is happening over in United States, what is happening in Japan, what is happening in India. And this gives students a global mindset. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing all of these additional elements? Because because our graduate attributes dictate our behavior, ours as teachers. Because we know our student, when they graduate from us, they must have that. Okay, so writing measurable learning outcomes. Learning outcomes. And how this, the outcomes over here, dictate my behavior. Okay, understand, guys? So it is the same to all of you also. Same to all of you. When you guys are teaching, some of you I know teach accounts, finance, okay, creative arts, nursing. But you also understand that students not only need to have intellectual competency, they need to have global mindset, problem-solving skill. So the way that you deliver your course will encourage this kind of skills being developed in them. Okay? Now, when we talk about outcomes or learning outcomes, I'm going to use the word LO here. Don't, the in front, we wait first. In Malaysia, we are dictated by the MQF, Malaysian Qualifications Framework. So I think this is a little bit of a recap, all right? In Malaysia, basically every program will need to, in a way, achieve the final goal of this thing called program educational objective. The program educational objective, also known as the PEO, are the skills that the student will need to have upon graduation and 4 to 5 years after that. Okay, so this is what is key, most important. Graduate 4 to 5 years after that. So a student joining us now in 2024, we need to prepare them. If they're doing a degree, they will graduate in 2027, for example, and 4 to 5 years after that. So until 2031, we need to give them the skills enough to be relevant until 2030 or 2031. Understand? That is called program educational objective. No point. We just give them a skill that is until their graduation day. No point. They graduate, they come out, they find job, cannot find because they are irrelevant. No. So PEO states 3 to 4. PEO never states forever because PEO understands no such thing as forever. A person that graduate, no way their qualification or their skill and their knowledge at that current state of graduation will be still relevant for the rest of their life. No, that is where lifelong learning comes in. All right. My degree that I took in 1998, many things are no more relevant. Certain fundamental aspects are still important, and the traits that are there to develop my personality and my character are definitely important. But the technical parts, I can safely tell you, many of them are irrelevant, no more, because things change. All right, that was nearly 30 years ago. Things change in such a rapid manner. So that is what PEO. And with this PEO, we come to program learning outcome. What are the learning outcomes of the program? This one, all of you already expert. Why? Because over in our institution, we follow that every school, when you write your PLO, you should have 11, 11. All right? Why 11? 11 is basically come from the 5 MQF cluster, and then we break it down into 11 sub-cluster. Knowledge, cognitive skill, practical skill, numeracy skill, digital skill, interpersonal skill, communication skill, entrepreneurship, lifelong learning, ethics, and one more, see, off my head. All right. So these are the skills. So basically, government already said, upon graduation, student must have this learning outcome. So these are called PLOs. Understand so far? PLO, you paham kan? Definitely. So the achievement of PLO is the final goal when they graduate. When they graduate, habis. Hari ini saya convocation. I will have achieved my program learning outcome. Okay. Then we have course learning outcome. Course learning outcome is a breakdown of a particular course and what that course will contribute towards the total program itself. For you to achieve or to attain a bachelor in hospitality and tourism management, then you must attain numerous different skills. You must attain different skills, all right, and knowledge. So normally over here, the knowledge that you need to attain will be equivalent to 120 credit hours. Faham, 120 credit hours. So basically, degree 120 credit hours. You need to attain 120 credit hours for you to attain your bachelor in hospitality and tourism management. These 120 credit hours will be divided into the various sub-discipline in that particular learning itself. So hospitality and tourism, what are the sub-learnings inside there? Okay, now many a times these are dictated by MQA. Okay, MQA will dictate. However, they will give a rough structure and it is for you to populate the different credits. That is where we have major, we have minor, we have elective, we also the government compulsory or mandatory subjects. Okay, so this is what makes the whole program itself. So that is known as the course learning outcome. The course. So each course will have their own learning outcome. So each learning outcome over there are small skills needed for the student to achieve the course, the competency of the course. And how we do over here is every CLO will then match with one PLO. For example, marketing in hospitality, they have 4 CLOs. So CLO1, it is on knowledge. Students need to know the fundamentals or the knowledge of marketing. So that CLO1 will be met with PLO1, which is knowledge. Let's say CLO2 is basically to be able to analyze and develop a marketing plan. Cognitive skill. So this one will be mapped with PLO2, for example, which is cognitive skill. CLO3 is be able to work in a group work. So this one may be mapped with PLO6, for example, which is intercommunication skill. Intercommunication between people, communication skill. And number 4 is able, under the course, is able to, let's say, use the newest technology or applications in the area, in the realm of marketing. So that is digital skill. So that can be mapped to PLO8, for example, digital skill. So these are all your CLOs. So the reason why it's important for me to stress this as a fundamental for today's lesson is, then you will see how learning outcomes influence the students' development for them to achieve their PEO. Okay, so you as a lecturer, many a times for us as educators, we see course level. So we see our course level only. We don't see the big picture. We see the cost level. So we see, oh, I'm teaching marketing, so this is what I do. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, your marketing will contribute to the total PLOs, program learning outcome. You are feeding skill. You are developing the student. You are developing the student in your course to ensure that they are competent to achieve their PLO. That is why we have the OBE map, the OBE sheet that we all do. These are all done in that way. Okay, so that are course learning outcome. Then we also have weekly topic outcome. I always call it lesson learning outcome, LLO. LLO are basically what you want to achieve in that particular day. Today you go in, you are teaching marketing. So today you have your lesson plan, kan? So that is your learning outcome. Today I got to make sure my students understand this in this way. And why? So that at the end of the day, they will then be able to achieve their course learning outcome. Then it will contribute to the program learning outcome. And finally, the program educational objectives. Okay, so that is the whole picture of different levels of learning outcome. So when we talk currently, when I am now doing this workshop with you all, we see the big picture on the importance of learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are not just you and your student itself. It is the big picture until the program level. It is the big picture until the graduate attributes. Graduate attributes are the outcomes. They are outcomes of the students also. So it is the big picture over there. However, in the more practical sense, we as educators, we will look at it as our course. So how do I ensure whatever I do in my course or my subject will then contribute towards the student's development? Understand this, guys? Any questions so far? Any questions? Any questions? Any understand?
Yes,
Yes?
understood. Thank you.
Okay, good. You all you can even use all of those signs. If any questions, if you want to raise your hand, you can do that, Now, so when we develop curriculum development is top down. PEO all the way to LLO. We strategize. However, when we talk about assessment, it's bottom up. When we talk about curriculum development, PEO here is we strategize. Let's say now, all 10 of you and myself, including myself, 11 maybe, we want to develop a program. We want to develop a program for students to be a program lah. So we need to look from the PEO stage. So what I will ask you all is this, guys, do reading. Find out in the next degree plus submission 1 year, so 4 years. In the next 4 to 8 years, what discipline or line of work or career will be the most important or the most relevant in Asia? I cannot take over Malaysia because the whole world is getting global. Then you all do research. At the end of the day, you come up with this particular career or job or demand. Then we develop the program for it. That is how it is done. It is not, hey, we are marketing, we are business people. Let's come up with a degree in entrepreneurship. No. That's wrong. Because you need to look at what is needed 5, 10 years down the road before you think about it, before you want to develop. So let's say we really do a bachelor in marketing and entrepreneurship in a social in social media. Then we first of all define the PEO. These are the program educational objectives that the students will need. Then we will then dictate by writing the PLO. So the PLO, then after that, we will then write the course learning outcome by whatever disciplines that are required to make sure that the students will understand this, will achieve this PLO. So then, of course, we have the LLO, the individual lessons where you all do your lesson plan. So when we talk about curriculum design, it is top down. But when you talk about assessment, it is bottom up. Assessment is always bottom up. You assess, you don't assess PLO. All right? You assess from the bottom, from the lowest level of the lesson itself. Every lesson you must assess. Assessment doesn't mean graded. Assessment can mean as simple as getting formative assessment and formative feedback from your students. Two types, formative and summative. Formative assessment and formative feedback is assessment that will benefit the student in the total development of the course, but does not have an impact on their final grade. Summative basically will have an impact on the final grade. So when we talk about formative assessment, it can be homework you give the student, then finish already they hand, then you tell them feedback. James, you did very well in this. Congratulations, you pat them on the back. Samantha, this question, you didn't write it very well. Your angle did not meet or answer what the question required. Then she knows how to improve. It could also mean using Kahoot in class. After teaching, you come up with using Kahoot, find out whether students understand or do not. That is formative. Okay, summative is what you do in your written essays, in your final exam, in your test, and so on. So if you do a good formative assessment, continuously assessing the student, every single lesson, informally, at the end of the day, students will do well in the summative because they are always on their toes. That is why in hospitality, I like to use the kitchen environment because not only I'm not biased, but I was from that discipline. In the kitchen, we don't wait until the student makes the mistake at the end. As they do their practical, the lecturer goes around, hey, the way you cut is wrong. This is how you should do it. So immediately they improve as they go along. Okay, so that is why it can be. But whereas in the classroom environment, you can use the same principles. After finishing a particular area of a chapter, immediately assess them. All right, students, I got 3 questions here. I want you all to find out the answer and put it up online. Then we will discuss about it. Then you find out whether students understand or not. Okay, so learning outcomes. So basically, when we talk about assessment, assessment is the tool that we use to ensure students achieve their learning outcome. Now, this is the part that I would like to stress a little bit more. We need to ensure, because we are a legal, legitimate organization, we need to ensure the tool that we use is a controlled tool. Understand? It's a controlled tool. That is why there are so many rigid processes in our summative assessment methods, our formal exam, our tests. It needs to be moderated. It needs to be double marked. It needs to go through a process of school assessment board before the Senate approves. Why? Because the final parchment that the student takes from us, this is to verify that Mr. Gabriel has achieved his bachelor in hospitality with a second-class upper. That second-class upper word over there is critical. And when I carry that, it must demonstrate that I have achieved the level of a second-class upper under UOW Malaysia. That is why it is very rigid. Whereas the outcome of you baking a cake at home is not rigid because it's only you eating. Nobody's going to care about it. So that is where it differs a lot. Okay, so when we look at our learning outcome, for the way that we achieve, the way that we assess whether students achieve learning outcomes needs to be measurable. So now we go back to the topic of our subject. We talk about learning outcomes, and so on. Now we are going to discuss the word measurable. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be measured in a very accurate manner. It cannot be guesswork. Why? Because the outcome is so important. Outcome will determine whether student is a first class, second class, upper, and so on. It needs to be measurable. And because it needs to be measurable, it needs to be benchmarked. It needs to be benchmarked. It needs to ensure a level of quality is being governed. It governs it. That is how important the assessment component is. Whereas you bake at home, you bake cake at home, you're not going to get a cert. All right, it's your own enjoyment. Mistake lah. It can be a lousy cake and you want to say this is the best cake I've ever eaten. Up to you lah. You can call it anything you want. You can even call the cake Samantha if you want. All right. So this is up to you. Whereas in an education institution, this is how it is. It needs to be measurable. Okay. Understand? So that is why when we talk about learning outcomes, it needs to be clearly measured, measurable. All right. Any questions, guys? Okay. Now, benefits for students and educators. What are the benefits at the end of the day when we have good learning outcomes? Measurable, accurate, precise. For student, improve learning. Clear outcomes help students focus their study efforts on what is important. This is what is important. I focus on it and I do well in it. This is what I need to achieve for students. Number two, self-assessment. Students can assess their own progress and identify areas of improvement. If I know in my pastry class, I'm doing pastry, cakes, biscuits, and so on, I know what is important, my learning outcome. Then I can do my own self-assessment. Oh, this is the textbook, got these pictures and so on. How come my cake, this is supposed to 6 inches, mine is only 2 inches? What is wrong with it? Something is wrong. You can assess because the outcomes are so clear. The outcomes are so clear already. Student must achieve this. And if you know you don't achieve it, something is wrong. For educators, course design helps in structuring the course content and activities to meet the desired outcome. You have clear learning outcome, the way you design your course will also be very smooth. You won't be confused what to do, how to do. No need, because you won't terpesong. You will focus. Let me give you an example. The example of marketing again. We have different levels, diploma, degree, masters. Basic marketing theories, we always use the Kotler book, Philip Kotler. All right, Kotler, very popular marketing author. His book, basically, 15 chapters. I didn't even know, new revised on 17 chapters. You are teaching the diploma student. Do you need to teach all 17 chapters? For you, everything is important. Wow. Oh, ini penting, ini penting, ini penting, ini penting, ini penting, ini everything important. Of course lah. You are already at a level, you are a master's and a PhD student. For you, everything is important. So you want to give everything to the student. Student die. Student level 4 only, diploma. So when you have clear learning outcomes, it helps structure the course content and activities. Diploma student in your mind, they need to know marketing, but at what level? Introductory only. No need to go in depth. So every chapter, maybe you don't even take 17 chapters because from chapter 12 to chapter 17 is going to be a bit more advanced. So you use chapter 1 to chapter 12, the textbook, for example, if it is good. And then you may not even use the whole chapter, certain key important parts. Then you structure it in that way to meet the outcome, learning outcome needed by that level of student. Understand? This is how it is. But many a times, what we see is sometimes academicians take the easy way out. Oh, let's use the Kotler book, use chapter 1 to chapter 17, teach everything. That is why student pun garu kepala. Too much. Okay? Whereas now degree may still use the same book. However, the emphasis will be different. Textbook sama ma. Textbook sama. But the approach is different. It impacts your course design. Because degree student, not only do they need to know fundamental, they need to do application, applying this. Okay? Second thing for educators, assessment alignment. If you have clear learning outcome, ensure that assessments are directly linked to what students are expected to learn. Okay, so if one of your learning outcome in your course is students are able to communicate in an effective manner, verbal communication, then your assessment automatically verbal communication. Can I give them an essay? Maybe not. Maybe not lah, cannot lah. You need to do presentation. Automatically already it dictates the way that you state your assessment. It is going to be an exam. Understand? So this is how important or how learning outcomes, measurable per se, help students and also us educators. All right? Okay? Any questions, guys? No? Okay. Aku cikgu pun kenalah ada dapat feedback sikit. Guys, hello. You're there, first things first. Shahidah, at least Shahidah has shown proof of life. Okay. Uh, okay. So, what are learning outcomes? Learning outcomes, clear, concise statements that describe what students are expected to know, do, or value by the end of the course or program. All right. So those are learning outcomes lah. Very clear, concise statements, clearly state what they must achieve. So examples, if we are talking about knowledge, students will be able to explain the principles of photosynthesis. So the principles of photosynthesis. If it's skill, students will be able to produce a French omelette. Or if it's attitude, students will appreciate the importance of ethical behavior in business. So these are clearly some very simple statements that state on what learning outcomes are. Okay. Now, key points here when we talk about learning outcomes. Always remember, when we talk about learning outcomes, focus on students' learning. Okay, learning outcomes emphasize what the students will achieve rather than what the instructor will teach. For those of you who have attended my OBE sessions, it is the same. Even when it comes outcomes based, it is what the students need to achieve. So when we talk about learning outcomes, it is the outcome of the learning. So when the students go through learning, what is the outcome? So it is very student perspective, student emphasize, so student emphasis. So when we talk about it, is focus on students learning. We need to emphasize what the students will achieve. At the end of the day, I must achieve this. Not what I want to teach, not what I want to teach. I want to teach students how to make bread, but this is a pastry class. Students need to learn how to make cakes. So I will then teach them how to make cakes, not bread, because bread is what I want to teach, but students must learn how to make cakes, for example. Okay, so that's number one. Two, observable and measurable. You must be able to observe them doing, and it must be measurable. Outcomes should be stated in terms that can be observed and measured. Okay, ensure they can be assessed effectively. There must be an effective way of measurement. Example, you are teaching accounting. Students cannot tell you, ma'am, I am good in accounting, please give me an A. Cannot. It must be measurable. It must be observable and measurable. You must see them, or they must prove to you that they can. So how do we measure? We give them an written examination. Results come, measure. And to ensure that it is done in a proper way, we put them in an exam hall. We don't let them do at home, because do at home, they can cheat. They can ask people to do for them. All right. So it's measurable, and we know there is control mechanism to ensure the work has quality over there. Okay. So this is what it means. So by doing so, we can ensure that what they demonstrate to us, they give us their work, is their work. And if they score 90 over 100, it is the student who really achieved 90 over 100. That is why assessment is so important. When we talk about learning outcomes, the assessment, the tool to assess is very, 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 very important. All right. You don't do a selection. Let's say you are in school. You want to select 2 individuals to represent the school for 100 meters run to compete with other schools. You want to select 2. There are 20 participants. You want to select 2. Do you ask them to swim? No, that's the wrong assessment. All right. You don't ask them, okay, guys, let's go to the swimming pool. You all swim, swim to the end and come back. The first 2 I will select for the 100-meter run. Definitely not. All right. Okay. So the assessment needs to be critical, very important. The choice of a wrong assessment, when you assess students wrongly, many times what's going to happen is the students will be unfairly evaluated. Wrong. Why? I am a good runner. You ask me to swim. and you are going to select the two top runners based on who wins the swim meet. That is wrong. Okay, so when you do your assessment, is also the same. Okay, the assessment. For those of you who read academic research, many academic research come out with the finding that final exam may not be the best method of assessing the student, because you are assessing a student in a situation. What does it mean by a situation? It means it is going to be 25th of November at 11 a.m. You're assessing the student. Okay. Now, if something happened to the student 2 hours before, the poor fella kena accident, somebody bang. Some of you, no problem, slumber, no problem. Certain people will traumatize. Traumatized because they have survived, but because of the hit, shaken up. During the exam, poor fellow will not do well. Okay, there are many situations that can impact that person itself. However, the written examination has a lot of merits. A lot of merits because they put all candidates in the same environment with the same condition. Okay, now certain researchers say that if you really want to assess the student, it should be progressive. More assessments, individual presentations, written reports, and so on. Yes, if you have 200 students and you want to do that, 6 assessments for individuals, small assessments, but 6. And you got 200 students. 6 kali 200, you will have 1,200 pieces of assessment for your class. Mati. Okay, so there is no one best way of assessment. It is always a balance of efficiency versus effectiveness. All right, it's always a balance. Okay, and of course, many a times we always choose the lesser evil, as they say that. All of them got negative parts, negative components, but the lesser evil. In Australia, our colleagues in UOW, for the past few years, there has been a switch from sit-down examination to more progressive assessments. Okay, and they found the outcome of the students to be better. Better employment, better feedback from the employers, and so on. But recently, after COVID, they have switched back a little bit. Why? Because many of the assessments couldn't be done. All right, and then and also due to generative AI. All right, Gen AI, Chat GPT. So you all know that. Okay, I won't stress so much. So there have been a switch back to exam. But a lot of the TNL committee, even in Australia, they question, don't take the easy way out. Because Gen AI, you want to give back to exam. But 10 years ago, we did research and we found out that exam was not effective. You get what I'm trying to say, right? 10 years ago, the data showed exam wasn't effective. Then we switched, and then our students were getting better. And now, because of Gen AI, you want to go back to exam. Wrong lah. Because 10 years, the research already proved that our students were getting better accepted. You get what I'm trying to say, right, guys? So basically, these are the situations that needs to be considered when we look into assessment. Assessment plays such a critical part in learning outcomes. Okay? Following, guys? Can? All right. Now, I'm going to give you all a break now. It is 9:50. Take 9:51 now, I can see. Take a 9-minute break. Have a drink, run to the toilet. We will start back sharply at 10 a.m. All right? Okay, please go, guys. All right, fellow friends. It's 10 a.m. Uh, Hope you're back. Let's continue with where we stopped off. So, as the last point that I stated over there was outcomes should be stated in terms that can be observed and measured, ensuring that they can be assessed effectively. Okay, so that statement actually then brings us to the next point here, which for many of you, I believe it will seem quite familiar. So, what are the characteristics of measurable learning outcomes? Smart. Okay, it is similar when you talk about outcomes. It is a goal. Outcomes are like goals. This is the outcome. The outcome of doing this is the goal that you want to achieve. So basically, it needs to be smart, and smart is basically, when we talk about it, specific, measured, measurable, achievable or attainable. Some of us would like to call it attainable, relevant, and time or timely. Okay, so when we set learning outcomes, it is the same. All right. So you may ask, yep, what about course learning outcome? Got time, meh? Got. It is one semester, mah. All right. So the time is a semester. And basically, if you look at it, it is by credit. Because credit is the credit calculation in Malaysia is very, very, I would say, quanti in such a way that it is very clear. One credit is 40 notional hours. How much effort needed for the students to spend to achieve that one credit? Notional hours doesn't mean contact hours. It's self-learning, assessment, and so on. So it is one credit equals to 40. So if you see, let's say a marketing course is 3 credit, that means it is 120 notional hours. Means student must put in 120 hours of numerous kinds of activities for them to achieve that 3 credits. And for us to ensure that they achieve the 3 credits, there must be a form of assessment, as what we said earlier on. All right, so it is very clear. That is why when we talk about timely, it is the same. The time is the 120 notional hours. The 120 notional hours. So this is where it becomes important for us to understand. Okay, so when we talk about measurable learning outcome, what are the characteristics are these? Are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Okay, you cannot just tell a student, you need to do well in your subject. What is do well? What does it mean? How long does it take? What's the definition of well? And so on. It is like this. If I say, my goal is to lose weight, that is not a good outcome. All right. It is not measurable. The outcome is not measurable. Why? How much weight? Number one. Number two, how long? 1 day, 2 days, 2 years, 15 years, 20 years. That is, it is not being stated. Okay. So basically, this is what we need to look at over here. Okay. So being smart, okay, when we talk about measurable learning outcomes, the first one is specific. So learning outcomes should be clear and precise, leaving no room for ambiguity. It must be very clear. This is what the student must understand. Okay, so like instead of saying understand the water cycle, say describe the stages of the water cycle, including evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. So this is very clear. What is it? So at the end of the day, students need to understand this. So it needs to be very, very specific. You cannot say students will learn how to bake. There are so many baking. Cake also bake. Chicken also bake. Bread also bake. So when you talk about bake what? Potato also bake. Okay, so then it must be precise. And you cannot say assumption. Ayah, this is bread lah, bake ma. Cannot. It needs to be very specific. So that's number one. Number two, measurable. Outcomes should be quantifiable or accessible through various methods such as tests, projects, or observation. Whatever learning outcome that is in your course must be able to measure. There must be able to measure. There must be a method to measure whether they are good or they are no good. Okay, That is why sometimes certain things such as like ethics, wah, banyak susah. How do you measure ethics? All right, behavioral aspect, writing essay, and so on. Now, for some of you, you all understand you remember the course of moral studies, okay? Pengajaran model in the secondary and primary school. It has always met with a lot of, in a way, groups that actually question this particular course itself. For me, I want to score good grade. If the statement says, you see a poor puppy or kitten by the roadside, what would you do? A, assist. Take the kitten, bring to a side, clean and feed. B, leave the kitten there, dog there. C, kick the kitten or the dog. The most logical answer that is correct is A lah. Moral mah. We need to do that lah, you know. But many of the students will not do that. They will just leave the fella there. I hope not C lah. C is the worst. Kick the poor fella. But B, they will just leave it there. Oh, kitten, dog, a puppy, struggling. Let it be. Not my problem. Sayonara. Bye-bye. Okay. So this is where, when you talk about measurable, there needs to be quantifiable. It needs to be. You cannot just take hearsay from the student to say that they can. Okay, so that is why there must be a level of competency in the student, the proven competency. It is very similar to, if many of you would have heard about FLC that we all do over here. It's the same. Student cannot say, oh, I have worked 20 years in advertising. I am very good in advertising. Cannot. There must be evidence. All right. So this is what it is. It must be measurable. So how do we measure students' competency? It is through a mechanism or through a machinery or a whole process. That mechanism can be an examination. It can be a written report. It can be a presentation. It can be an interview with the employer also. For example, if you are talking about industrial placement, when students go out to go for industrial placement, you cannot be there 24/7. You can ask them to write a report, fine. But what else? What kind of quantifiable methods can you use to see that person's ability during that period? You speak to employer. Hey, how was Joseph? Did Joseph do well in the training the past 4 months? The employer will give feedback. Now, is it totally 100% accurate over there? No. Okay? Because the employer may not see the student 24/7. That is why, if you notice, you don't take 100% marks from the employer's feedback alone. Correct or not? You don't, right? You have different assessment components that will contribute to the final mark. Why? Because there is no one method of measurement that is totally accurate. So you use different assessment methods. It's like marketing. When I used to teach marketing, there is always a group work. And in that group work is a report and a presentation. Then I have individual assignment for the student. Then I have final assessment for the student. Okay, so normally my style very simple. I'm a simple person. 4 credits, 4 assessment methods. 3 credits, 3 assessment method. Okay, so that is my style lah. Is there a set rule? This is based on literature that I read. So they say senang lah. Why crack my head? Do so many what? Enough. Some students, 2 credits, 5 assessment method. Mati student. Students, when they do assessment, it is a roller coaster. It takes time for them to build momentum, up, finish, down. So if you have 5 guys, for 2 credit, it is 5 times. Poor students lah. Okay, mindset, a lot. Okay, not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but sometimes we have to consider our poor colleagues, our poor friends lah. Okay, so this is how it is. So it's measurable. I want to take these few seconds or a minute just to ask any question about the first two, specific and measurable, especially for when we talk about assessing. Okay, any questions, Ken? Okay, now Another tip that I would like to advise when you're talking about writing measurable learning outcomes in your final exam, okay, when you write questions and so on, get a third party to read. Get a third party to read. All right. Sometimes in your mind, because you are the discipline, you are the leader of the discipline. All right. You are the marketing sifu. The way you write, you understand. Doesn't mean students understand. Okay, so get a third party, get a friend. Hey, come. You help me to read. You understand or not? What does it say? What do I ask for? If your colleague tells you something that is not what in your head, you better be worried because the way that you have written may not be measurable. Okay? So this is what it is. So when we talk about it, on measurable, this is something that it is very important. Okay? Next, achievable, must be able to achieve. When you write measurable learning outcomes, must be able to achieve. This is also similar to when you write your CLO. Your CLO is also the same. You don't put a CLO over there. You write your course learning outcome that will require the students 1 year of learning for them to achieve. No, because your semester is only that duration of time, and they spend 120, if it is a 3-credit course, 120 notional hours. So you don't put a course learning outcome that is so high level that the students need 1,200 notional hours to achieve. Take note. So outcome should be realistic and attainable, within the given time frame and resource. That given time frame and resource. Okay, so when you write that, this is very important. So even exam, when you structure your exam paper, okay, now this is my practice. If it takes you, it should take you, sorry, I will rephrase that statement. It should take you roughly 60 to 70% of the given time for you as the person who is knowledgeable of the discipline to do that exam. So your exam paper should be roughly, let's say for you to do, it will take you 1 hour or 70 minutes. 1 hour to 70 minutes for you to do. Okay. Then your student should take roughly 85 to 90% of the time because you are different level. And there's always that extra buffer of 10% of the time for them to review and so on. This is taking a general feedback. Some students may take 70 minutes, fine. Some students are already at your level. 60 minutes, they can finish. All right. Don't do an exam. Don't write a question or an exam that for you yourself will take 2 hours. You are the sifu, you are the master of the subject. If for you to take 2 hours, you don't expect your students to take 2 hours. All right. It will take longer. So this is called achievable. Same thing also when you write, don't expect students to finish a 5,000 word essay at a level 4, a degree level, if you give them 1 day. Today, your class finished at 3 p.m. All right, students, the question is this. I want a 5,000 word essay tomorrow morning, hand in at 8 a.m. for before our 8 a.m. class. Not saying all students cannot, but for a level 4, that is not achievable. And also, it is not needed at that level. Not needed at that level. Now, if it is 3 p.m., you want them to hand in tomorrow at 8 a.m., you want, because you want rigor in the student, academic rigor. Not 5,000 words. Maybe a 500-word essay. Can? Then there's no issue. It's achievable. 500-word essay is achievable. All right, we all know lah. Since our old school one, introduction, review, issue, solution, finding, conclusion. Everyone, you do 80 words, also 500 words already lah. That is how we used to do. I still remember in the mid-90s when I was doing my undergraduate studies. Those are the tricks we do. Break down your assignment into components. Then you will find when people tell you 500 words, wow, kanchiong. But actually, one, you all know, right? A lot of you already masters in this already. So it's achievable. But if 5,000 word, not achievable. So take note. For the beginner course, write a basic HTML web page for our computing colleagues. Is achievable, while developing a complex web application might not be if it is beginner. All right, so this is achievable. 4, relevant. Outcome should align with the overall course, goals of the course and be meaningful to the student's future learning or career. Your course learning outcome, when you write CLO, it must be related to the discipline of the course. Bachelor in Business and Accounting, Bachelor in Business and Law, for example. Under that, there are 32, 33 different courses. Each course have their own CLO. And whatever CLO course learning outcome needs to be relevant to that particular course. And that course needs to be relevant to that particular program. You don't put in things that are not relevant. Okay, you don't put in things that are not relevant. So this is what it means. In a business course, analyze market trends is relevant, while recite historical dates might not be. All right. Now, recite historical dates would be relevant for a person who is majoring in history. You see, that one would be relevant for them because they need to know. Okay, they need to know how did the First World War, the Great War start. Okay, what was the catalyst? What year? When did it end? And so on. Yes. But for business students, no. Business students, market trends, yes lah. Okay. Business students may need to know things such as like elasticity of demand. Oh no, that is economic students. See, I also getting a little bit confused. That's more economics, right? Business students need to know the marketing mix, for example. So all of those kind of different elements. Okay, so that is the relevancy of the discipline of what you put in itself. And finally, time-bound, timely. Outcomes should specify the time frame within which students are expected to achieve them. Okay, that is why when we talk about CLO is the achievement in that semester or that or in that period of notional hours. Why am I cautioning myself to use the word semester? All of us here, we know 14-week semester. Correct, right? 14-week semester, that means student every week, I see them for 3 hours. Then they are supposed to do work on their own. Why? Because many of you are also teaching OBE, ODL courses, open distance learning. Open distance learning is where students learn on their own. So when we talk about timely or time-bound, it is the same. It is the notional hours. Students will need to do it in their own time, but there must be certain duration given, all right, to them. So it must be in a way logical of that duration of time. Okay. ODL means students take the number of courses. It's up to them, a lot of working people. However, when you give them assessments, also it is the same. There must be time frame given to them because every assessment that is given must be moderated or dictated by resources, by limitation of resources. Why do we always give, when we give an assessment or assignment to student, word count? Have you ever thought about it? Word count is so important. If you give student an assignment, students, I give you 1 week to write this assignment. Okay, hand me assignment on the economic challenges that Malaysia is facing. Okay, 1 week. There are 2 conditions that you didn't give. Duration and, sorry, 1 main condition, the word count. Okay, so what the students do? Students will extract from everywhere. Thousands and thousands of data and put it in. Very easy, now. You can go online, extract this and that. No need to learn. So the report is going to be words, 15,000 words. All right, 15,000 words. Everything is there. Everything is there. But did student learn anything? Zero. All right. Now, word count basically requires the student to select. Select. When you put word count, students need to be intelligent to think. to select because data is so much. So now they are limited to 1,000 words. How do I select apa yang penting, apa yang tak penting? And the ability to select requires learning and knowledge. Okay? As I always use this, I think Alicia will be laughing if she's there. How to buy mangoes. I always use this with my student. Anybody can buy mangoes, but it requires intelligence and knowledge to buy good mangoes. Okay? When I was young, mother asked me, Gabe, go to the shops, buy mangoes. Wah, senang lah. Boss, give me three come back, then kena taruh at home. What the hell is this? Not right. Why? Why her instruction not clear, ma? Must be good mangoes, must be want to eat today, must be, you must be clear. Because if you want to buy good mangoes, there are what you call conditions. What are the conditions? Smell, touch, sight, conditions. A good mango, the stem will be sweetish, you smell. The touch will be firm, slightly soft but yet firm, and the color will be a bit more yellowish. So you go there, when you select, you look at condition, then you select. Okay, so basically, that is why assignments must have conditions. All right, when you give assignment, time, duration, number of words. Okay, all of these are very important. You cannot give open. Then students will then use their brain. Okay, so when we talk about learning outcome, this are it lah. The first thing we need to look at when you set, it must be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, SMAR, relevant, and T, timely or time bound. Okay, everything. Not only writing your exam paper, writing your exam paper or assessment is learning outcome, but also when you design course learning outcome, CLO, when you design your PLO, also the same. When you design your PLO, program learning outcome, the students will be with you for 3 years degree. So you got to make sure it becomes relevant. All right, it's timely. In 3 years, they can achieve this. All right. So this is why it is critical to understand SMART itself. Understand this, guys? Okay. Boleh? Questions? Questions? Any questions? No, good. I see hands up. Now, when I ask, this is called formative. I'm doing formative assessment. I'm assessing very simply by asking, do you understand? Yes, and you're giving me formative feedback. All right. Yes, understand. No problem. If you have switched on your video, I don't need to ask. I see body language. It's the same thing in class. All right. You see body language. Body language is a form of formative feedback that your respondents can give to you. Okay. Now, tips for writing measurable learning outcomes. Number 1, of course, we all know this. Use action verbs. Choose verbs that clearly indicate the expected action. Okay. Action verbs. This one, I don't need to tell you. Why? You go online, you click in Google, you type in Google, list of action verbs. Everything is there. Okay. Analyze, create, evaluate, and so on. Be specific. Avoid vague terms like understand or learn. What does understanding mean? Okay. So you need to be clear on what the students need to understand. Understand the concepts of marketing. There are thousands of concepts. Which concept? Which concept that is important? Okay. Understand historical changes of which country? The whole world is so big. All right. All right. It can be understand the European history of the 1940s, cultural history over there, or something like that. At least you specify what happened in the 1940s over in Europe when the war is happening. So that is your learning, not everything. Okay. 3, ensure measurability. Make sure the outcomes can be assessed through assignments, tests, or practical activities. Whatever you want to teach, there must be a way of assessing the student. There must be. Take, for example, leadership skill. I really, really kasihan those people who's under their course evaluating leadership skill. One of the most difficult. Why? Because leadership skills, many a time, it is based on action, that skill is being identified. You cannot go into the class. Can you show of hand who got leadership skill? Raise your hand. Cannot. It is during action. So when it's during action, there must be a lot of observational processes that the facilitator needs to do. So in hospitality school last time, that is why we have practical class. So when I was running the restaurant, one of my key aspect of my CLO was leadership skill. Students run their restaurant, students do their maison place. Maison place is the preparation before service. They do everything. So you will see people running. And then every week, we appoint a leader, a restaurant manager. That doesn't mean that guy is a good leader. Everybody need to try. But during the process, as you are observing, Ali may not be the restaurant manager. Today, he's just a waiter. But you see initiative in him. Initiative. Oh, he does that. Oh, this is good. Not expected from him. He managed to handle a problem that's normally done by the restaurant manager, but he took the lead. Leadership skill. Even though Ali was the waiter on that day. Now, guys, we do it because it's practical class. You got 200 students, how you do it? Mati. And number two, the person who is observing needs to be trained on how to identify leadership skill. If you are not trained, it's very difficult for you to identify also. Okay, so this is where it becomes challenging when you talk about measurability. So guys, at the end of the day, when you go back and when you do end of this year, I know business school has started to do their program review last week. Many schools are doing their end of the year program review. I want all of you to go when you do your program review and your course review to analyze properly. All right, are we assessing our students, especially for those difficult outcomes that we need to assess? Are we assessing them in the correct manner or in the effective manner? I'm not saying you are doing it wrongly, but this is the time for you to assess. Okay, because if you look into the 5 clusters and the 11 PLOs, leadership and ethics mesti ada punya. If you tak ada, something is wrong. How do you do that? And your fellow colleague, your lecturer, who is the one in charge of identifying leadership or ethics, please give that fellow support. Okay? School leaders, school heads, you all must give the lecturer support. It's not easy. It is really not easy. Now, cognitive skill, knowledge skill, senang. Itu exam boleh kau tim. Practical skill senang. Communication not so senang, but still can. Ada rubrik mah. Ada rubrik. Pakai rubrik boleh buat. Okay? But the others can be a little bit difficult. Understand this, guys? Understand, huh? Okay? So, measurability. And of course, align with course objective. Ensure each outcome supports the broader goal of the course. You got to make sure every outcome, every learning outcome, from your lesson learning outcome to your course learning outcome to your program learning outcome, all supports each other. Because student, when they achieve their LLO, they will achieve their CLO, they will achieve their PLO, then they graduate with first class, then they go out, they will achieve their PEO. Because why? They will get a job, the employer will say, well done, the employer will say, UOW has developed you in the correct way with the correct skills. And you are relevant. You graduate, you go out, you are relevant. Then it is the student's role to upgrade or improve themselves as they go on. Okay? So, of course, when we talk about that, Bloom's taxonomy comes in. So, when we talk about learning outcomes, writing measurable learning outcomes, not only do we use action verbs, but also it is important for us to understand what level is expected from the student. So, when we talk about, there's always 3, cognitive, affective, hard, and psychomotor. Okay, so here is basically, I won't stress so much over here. There are numerous levels and what is expected from them. A lot of emphasis is put on the cognitive side domain because majority of our assessments are cognitive assessments. They're exam related. Okay, they're exam related, assignment related, and so on. All right, so there are levels within such a thing. Now, so I think this one, I will not stress so much on this. We have gone through numerous times already, and you'll be able to look. But maybe I would like to stress a bit here. Let's say you are, doing a question on that is something related to the affective domain. Then you may want to look at the various action verbs in the affective domain. All right, in the affective domain itself. Okay, so or even the psychomotor domain, it is different. Okay, there are action verbs inside also that you will be able to use to assist you. Once the action verb is there, once you know the level, then it will assist you in your writing. Okay, that is how it actually works. I will explain that when I go on to the next one over here. So I'm going to use the cognitive part, the cognitive domain over here, action verbs. So when we talk about Bloom's on the affective, on the thinking side of it, where most of you are doing, it is divided into 6 components. Remember, all the way to create. I like to use the word synthesize, the last one, all right, where you build things, you put 2 and 2 together, and students are able to develop, all right, creating new knowledge. That is why for many of you PhD students, or also who have attained your doctorate, one key aspect is the development of new knowledge. Okay, development of new knowledge or new areas of knowledge. That is synthesizing, where you see challenges, you see problems, and you then think to create the solutions to these issues. That is a high level. Over the lowest level, which is remember, this is just regurgitating. You just know the concepts and theories. So for us over here in UOW Malaysia, I believe you have actually seen the Bloom's taxonomy template that is given to all staff for them to design exam questions, where it's clearly stated diploma year 1, year 2, degree year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on, what level and depth of questioning should be in your assessment. Your assessment, not only final exam, assessment. Diploma year 1, you will find majority, kebanyakan of the marks given will be at a lower level here, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Then there will be some also that will be analyze, evaluate, or create. It's fine. The higher level you go, the more the curve of this expectation will be more towards create. Diploma year 2 will be similar to degree year 1. Degree year 1 is very foundation or first level. All right, so diploma year 2 and degree year 1 quite similar. Okay, now, why is this important? When you write measurable learning outcomes, okay, even in your document CLO or even your exam, outcomes in your exam, it is important for you to know what level the students are. Okay, because students at different level will require a different level of expectation. You write a marketing paper for a master students, don't even think about this lah. Okay, when a master students write down the marketing mix, the 7 P's, I'm not going to give marks, definitely. That is supposed to be known knowledge. Knowledge that they're supposed to know at level 7. Marks will only be given how they use the tool to evaluate. Whereas when diploma students define the 7 P's, the marketing mix, I will give them marks. I will give them marks. Then as they use it, I will also give them marks one part, but I don't expect that. That is called good students. For degree students, the marks will be given, but less. You see? You get it? So this is how it is. When you talk about writing measurable learning outcomes, it depends on the level of the student itself. All right? What is expected from the student? So from there, you get your action verbs. Once you have your action verbs, then you are able to write your question. For me, I have a practice. How do I write question? When I write questions, there is always 3 components when I write questions or anything when I'm talking about learning outcomes. Action verb, theory concept, situation. Example, elaborate the impacts of, elaborate, action verb. The marketing mix, the marketing theory is marketing mix in current Malaysian economic situation. It is the situation itself. So there must be 3. If you only do 2, elaborate the marketing mix. No thinking, just regurgitation. Marketing mix. In what scenario? Nothing. All right? Cannot. So there must be a scenario. Scenario requires application. You action verb, theory or concept, situation. Faham? This is how I normally do. All right? The 3 things. So when you write your exam paper, you write learning outcome or whatever, you write CLO, next time you go to another college or you go to another institution and your principal or your vice chancellor say, hey, come, develop new syllabus. When you develop, think. Remember, Gabe's training, these 3 things inside there must be a situation. Then you can do easier. If no, it is too open. Just picture the course learning outcome is students to be able to understand marketing concepts. Wah, dayo. Marketing concepts, as I stress lah, beribu-ribu lah. Okay, so it should be more precise. That is why sometimes when I see the course learning outcomes that it is shown that a lot of the schools have, many of them are good, but some of them have still avenue to improve. All right, still avenue to improve. But sometimes when I speak to the head, I say, hey, this one you need to narrow a bit. Then they turn around and say, Gabe, the reason why we do like that, we got leverage. We have a little bit of flexibility. So can change. Tak boleh lah macam tu, because it becomes too vague. Okay, so it should be a little bit more accurate. And if your school or your department teaches the same course for different levels, always read it together. This is the table 4 for diploma marketing, table 4 for degree marketing, table 4 for master's marketing. Read together. That means you read the table 4, degree, diploma, degree, masters. Then you should see progression. Faham? You should see progression. If you don't see progression or something is, then you question your program leader, your ADH. Something is wrong here. I read the masters and the degree, same level. Sama saja. Something is wrong lah. Okay? That is why it is important for us to look at it that way. Now, will it require effort? Yes, it requires effort. All of this change requires effort, review, and so on. But for us to be better, no choice lah. Sometimes we have to do this. Especially now, end of the year, program review is coming. Okay? So, writing effective learning outcomes, steps to writing learning outcomes. What are the key steps? You should know based on what I said already. So, 1, identify the desired skill, knowledge, or skill. When you want to write your learning outcome, what are the skill or the knowledge that the student must have? Determine what you want students to know or be able to do by the end of the course. They need to know marketing at what level? Okay, they need to know marketing, but diploma level lah. Introductory to marketing. 2, select verbs that clearly describe the extended action and are measurable. What kind? Elaborate, understand, or so on. Okay, so you choose your action verb. How do you choose? So in your mind, this one is diploma. Diploma should be more, mana? Diploma should be more, this one lah. Should be more, remember, mana tu saya punya cursor. Until here. So you may have four learning outcome CLOs. So maybe the first 2 CLOs will be more lower level lah. Then the 3rd CLO will be able to solve. And the 4th CLO, don't torture the students to analyze. Maybe another solve or demonstrate or something like that lah. So 2, diploma student marketing, 2 will be remember and understand. And then maybe another 2 that is apply lah. So they need to remember, understand, and apply. Degree student, different. Degree student, because this first time doing marketing, yes, they need to explain. Then it is more apply analysis here and maybe 1 evaluate. Okay, 4 CLO, the first CLO, this one, then the next 2, these 2, and then the final one here. Masters, MBA, you're writing the course learning outcome for their marketing course. Please don't even touch these 2. Wasting time. That is called known knowledge. For them to do masters, they must know. Okay, it is maybe 1 on this, and the other 3 CLOs is this side already. Evaluate and create. Or maybe 2 and 2. Understand this, guys? Faham? Thumbs up, thumbs down, up, down, left, right. Okay, understand, huh? So this is how, good. So this is how you actually set your learning outcomes. Okay, okay, mana ni? Okay, so choose, okay. Then ensure outcomes are measurable. Whatever you do, make sure you write already. You must think straight away how to measure. That is why when you look at table 4, guys, table 4 is I tell you, for me, I'm not biased, but because I read those boring documents before I sleep, I find our MQF documents are brilliant documents. MQA has a lot of good documents. The problem is whether they apply it or not, lah. But the documents are very good. Okay. In our table 4, it is very clearly stated what CLO, what assessment and delivery method. Betul kan? How are you going to deliver this lecture, tutorial, and then assessment? How are you going to assess it? It's clearly stated there already that you need to think of your assessment. You set your CLO, you must think assessment. So here is where you need to ensure outcomes are measurable. Make sure the outcomes can be assessed through assessments, tests, or other evaluation methods. Mesti. Anything at all. Anything. So every CLO you set for your new course, you must set that. How are we going to assess this? And it is not set in stone. That is where program review comes in. I get a lot of feedback from people ask me, hey, Gabriel, can we change our assessment method? Can we? Of course, that is called program review. You are supposed to. If you find something not effective, you change. With supporting document, okay? And justification. Don't change for the sake of changing. But you change because we know things change. Generative AI has required us to change our assessment method to a certain extent. But there is a requirement too. All right. So the example over there, poor outcome, understand the principles of economics, well-written outcome, explain the principles of supply and demand, and apply them to real-world scenarios. Okay. So there is, if you look at this, we have the action verb, we have the theory, principles of supply and demand, and we have the scenario, real world scenarios. But I will be even more jahat. I find real world scenarios can be a little bit vague. I will say Malaysia in the past 6 months. So you get your students, you get your students to really think, oh, so the students now, they are ready lah. You see? So they know, oh, these are important. So they will improve themselves. They will drive themselves to achieve something higher. Okay? Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Vague language. This is number 1. When you write your learning outcomes, it's too vague. Using terms like understand or learn. Understand, learn, too vague. Okay, difficult to quantify. It's very difficult to quantify. What does it mean by I have learned? What does it mean by I understand? It should be a little bit more specific. That is why the action verb list does really, really help. Use specific action verbs that clearly describe the expected performance. 2, overly broad outcomes. Outcomes that are too general and lack specificity. It's not specific. Okay, it's not specific. Break down broad outcomes into smaller, more specific ones that are easier to assess. Okay, take marketing for example. My broad outcome when I teach my degree students is they need to know the theories, the fundamentals of marketing. That is the broad outcome. Then what I do is I break it down into key components. Okay, so I break it down into the first one. They need to understand the theories or the fundamental, the theories. That means the people who actually come out with marketing theories. Then the second part is to identify supply and demand, for example. And the third, fourth. Okay, so what you do is you want the broad outcome is you want them to know about marketing. Then every CLO will be more specific. These are the key areas or units for them to know. Not topics, not chapters, is areas. All right. For example, if you're looking into let me just use this as an example. Let me use this as recruitment and selection in HR, human resources. I used to do HR also. Recruitment. Under the recruitment process, there are many sub-chapters. Things such as like you need to know person specification, you need to know job description, you need to do job audit, you need to know market changes. Then after that, how do you do recruitment? You need to know different methods of recruitment. So there are 5 chapters under recruitment, okay, under need and recruitment. All right, but 5 chapters inside that. So under human resources, I want students to understand, to study human resources. It's a big picture, but I'm more specific. First CLO is on recruitment processes. Second CLO2 is understand the pros and cons of different selection methods. Recruitment and selection different. No. Recruitment is the process of getting them the data, find out that you need, and to bring them. Selection is choosing the right person for that particular role itself. Then after that, it's going to be training them for the particular job. So under human resources, 3 CLOs. First, recruitment, big picture, 5 chapters. Second one is selection. Another 5 chapters, how to do good selection. And finally is the induction, how to get them ready for the job itself. I taught this subject 15 years ago. I still remember. Brilliant subject. But now no more already. But you still can remember. All right. So that is what it is. You need to be specific. Okay. The outcomes, very specific over there. Okay. Understand this, guys? Okay. So aligning learning outcomes with assessment. So we already now understand our learning outcomes, this and that. So now how do we ensure a good alignment? Importance of alignment. I find this to be one a pitfall of many individuals, especially academicians, where the assessment method may not be the most accurate in assessing students' achievement. Okay, ensure assessment measures the stated outcomes. Always remember, whatever assessment you want to do, you go back to the learning outcome. This is what students need to achieve. Then you put the assessment. If anybody question you, hey, why you do this? You're wrong. Always answer in a logical sense. The learning outcome for the student is students need to do this and that. And the reason why I choose this assessment method is because this assessment method is the best method for me to assess the students' learning outcome. Okay, now you need to make sure you know what you're saying lah, in a way, the best method. Okay, so assessment should directly evaluate whether students have achieved the learning outcome. All right, misalignment can lead to inaccurate assessment of students' learning. Yes, you use the wrong assessment method, gone, not effective, and then totally out. It is like using a wrong equipment. All right, using a wrong equipment. You want to use a book to hammer a nail. It is possible, but it's not effective. All right, and what will happen to the nail? The nail will bengkok. So for you to hammer a nail, you need to have the right equipment and the right tool, and that is a hammer. So it's the same thing as an assessment method. All right, using a wrong assessment method, you still can assess, but it will not be effective. It will not be effective, and you may not get the full potential of that particular student. May not be able to demonstrate their full potential in that particular area. Okay. Examples of aligned assessment, learning outcomes. Students will be able to analyze historical events. Aligned assessment, an essay where students analyze the cause and effect of a specific historical event. So the learning outcome is they want students to be able to analyze historical event. Cannot be practical, ma? Okay, some of you may question. Yep, can be practical. It's called reenactment. Let's reenact World War II. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. How feasible is it? Difficult, huh? You want to reenact, okay? Reenactment is learning, because you need to understand what happens for you to act it out. But maybe not for this, lah. Maybe not for this. But some of you, maybe in drama or in communication, a reenactment can be a very good method of assessment. But for this historical event, then basically it's going to be an essay. All right, students elaborate. Okay. Two, learning outcomes. Students will be able to apply mathematical concepts to solve problems. A problem-solving test where students apply mathematical formulas to real-world scenarios. Okay? Yes. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, in reflection, okay, we reach the end. Okay. I hope you are able to, I hope you understood what I went through about assessment itself, about learning outcomes, and about the key aspect of making it measurable. Key elements here will be things such as like SMART. You need to understand SMART. Okay. How we use SMART in our learning outcomes. So it is important, the importance of measurable learning outcomes. Why are they important? What are the characteristics of measurable learning outcomes? As what was covered earlier on. What are the tips of writing learning outcomes? And of course, the common pitfalls. It is important for us to understand that when we talk about learning outcomes, it's very much the goals. Okay, the goals that we want the students to achieve. And with every goal, for me, I find a big drawback is on the way we measure those goals. We measure those achievements. And that is where assessments come in. So not only in today's lesson or today's workshop, I won't call it a lesson, I will call it a sharing session, where we analyze how do we ensure learning outcomes are measurable. But I believe I really emphasize on the assessment methods, where we have to ensure that we choose the correct tool for us to measure our learning outcomes. If not, then it is injustice for the students who have put effort or have put meaning into their learning itself. Are there any questions? Guys, any questions? Understand?
No questions. Yes, understood. Thank you, Gab.
Thank you very much. With that, terima kasih. 谢谢你. Okay. Thank you for this session. Okay. I hope it has been beneficial. Like always, my door is always open. And many of our colleagues have come over for chats, especially those heads who wants to do program review. If you need help, come. I'll be happy to assist you. If not me, Alicia will be happy to assist you. Kaldip or Dr. Tang will be very happy to assist you on those matters. All right. That is what we are here for. Okay. All right. With that, thank you very much. Have a very good Wednesday and see ya. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Ready, going, Maya? Sana?